Hello and welcome. You're watching India Sense. I'm Gaurie Dwivedi. This is the show that gets you week after week and month after month stories about India's rise, its ascent. Let's get you the stories that we're tracking this week. Amidst Trump administration's scathing and unwarranted remarks against India, New Delhi pushes ahead on its diplomatic options. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar meets Russian President Putin as India prepares for its next roadmap amidst shrill attacks coming in from the Trump administration. Amidst America's continued economic bullying, New Delhi and Beijing look to build their relationship further after the Galwan clash in 2020. While the trust deficit remains a concern, this is pragmatic diplomacy 101. Trump named Sergio Gaurie as the next ambassador to India. He will have his plate full and issues that he will have to address to ensure that the India-US relationship recovers from the Trump tariff that continues to have an overhang on the relationship. Sam Altman's OpenAI is all set to open its first office in India, in New Delhi. India is OpenAI's second largest market and one of the fastest growing after America. Apple is stepping up its manufacturing push in India with all models of the upcoming iPhone 17 series being assembled in India for the very first time. Our big story this week, viewers, India's high-stakes diplomatic power play. Foreign Minister Jaishankar was in Russia this week at a time when ties with Moscow are under intense scrutiny from Washington. In fact, they're under Washington's magnifying glass. Trade has remained the backbone of India-Russia relationship, with bilateral trade between the two now reaching a record $68 billion in the last year. This week, both countries even vowed to boost trade ties in the face of continued attacks that have come in from Trump, his growing tantrums. I want to first play out this soundbite where India is shutting down US President Donald Trump's baseless allegations over imports of Russian oil. We've said that once, we're saying that again, and we will continue to call out American hypocrisy. Listen in.
Prior to the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, India bought virtually no Russian oil. I mean, it was like 1% of their needs. So the argument somehow now, as the percentage has gone up to like 30 and 35%, they don't need the oil. It's a refining profiteering scheme. It's a laundromat for the Kremlin. That's the reality.
We are not the biggest purchasers of Russian oil. That is China. We are not the biggest purchasers of Russian LNG. I'm not sure, but I think that is the European Union. We are a country where actually the Americans said for the last few years that we should do everything to stabilize the world energy markets, including buying oil from Russia. So quite honestly, we are very perplexed at the logic of the argument that you had.
Donald Trump believes he's playing some master economic game where he's going on imposing tariffs in the name of balancing trade deficits. But what he needs to know is that it's New Delhi which has mastered the Russian roulette, playing a high-stakes diplomatic game driven by one thing alone, which is securing its national interest. New Delhi has now restored its oil procurement from Moscow after a brief dip in July and placed advance orders for the next 2 months. Even as Washington tightens its trade grip, Russia is rolling out the red carpet for Indian exporters, welcoming Indian exports to Moscow. And that needs to be kept in mind that while we may see a hit because of the 50% tariffs, it's not something that we will not be able to tide over if there are other parts of the world, other markets that are rolling the red carpet. Dr. Jaishankar urged Russian companies to deepen their engagement with India, a means to address the trade imbalance between the two countries. Kremlin also hopes of trilateral talks between India, China and Russia. India hasn't agreed to it so far, but what we have done is that we continue to deeply invest in our India-Russia relationship and also build further on the China relationship, which did go through a deep freeze after the Galwan conflict. And India has remained firm against Trump's inconsistent position, failing to mention China, Russia's largest oil customer, as well as Europe's LNG imports. Now, as the US moves towards isolationism, President Trump's trying efforts to reach a peace deal in Ukraine, it's throwing its partner New Delhi under the bus in the process, even as it's clear that there's no deal on the table from Putin's side. Putin has actually got the best as it could from the Alaska summit. Now, for Trump, the biggest problem is that he's now getting used to country after country bowing and kneeling in front of him. There was Japan, there is the entire European Union, all showing zero political courage and spine. While European leaders sit in Oval Office and be schooled by Trump like school children, India is showing what it takes to actually have strategic autonomy, ability to take a stand and follow it through. Which now brings us to the top voice on the show. White House advisor Peter Navarro leveled fresh charges against India over its purchase of oil, alleging the country is a laundromat. Now, let's be clear, by Trump's yardstick, whole of Europe and China should come under the same definition. The fact that it's not tells you the hypocrisy and doublespeak, viewers. And we'll keep calling that out. We'll keep repeating that. Tariffs is a two-way street. These tariffs are going to hit the American economy as much as they're going to hit India. Let's let Trump be under no misgiving whatsoever. Let's get an American economist, Kenneth Rogoff, who's joining me to break this down for us, viewers. And let me start with you, Mr. Rogoff. Thank you so much for speaking to NDTV and taking out the time. Let me start by asking you in terms of how you think that these massive tariffs that have been leveled on India or any of the large economies as well, do you see this tariff war also having a huge impact on the American economy? Because this is a two-way street, and at the end of the day, this will hit the American economy as well.
The U.S. economy has been the most successful economy in the world, and in large part, we've done that through our openness to trade, our openness to people, our openness to ideas. And Donald Trump wants to create an economy which is more self-sufficient. He says that all the time. And you can't have an economy at the level of strength that the United States is with self-sufficiency. Now, the tariffs, if they stayed at 15%, are already an obstacle to growth. They will absolutely slow down U.S. growth over the long run, and they'll also raise interest rates. But the kind of tariffs, the punitive tariffs that Trump's talking about on India, which is our ally after all, to bring tariffs to 50%, those are very, very destructive. I assume he thinks he won't actually have to do it, but it's still a pretty brutal thing to threaten the Indian economy with. Of course, he's doing that to Brazil also, and he's threatened other economies with that. Those kind of tariffs, that kind of war is very, very destructive.
So let me come back and ask you about the India-America economic relationship in the backdrop of those tariffs. We speak on the 23rd. 4 days from now is when the secondary tariffs, another 25%, will be imposed and will kick in from the 27th. How do you see the economic relationship then going forward between India and US?
I mean, this is a very costly measure politically. I mean, economically, it's not as big as it seems because Russian oil now, the price India is paying is not that much less than the world market prices. We're in a time where there's a global oil glut to some extent, and it's not that severe. But the optics, the supposed friendship between Trump and Modi, India's, it's not good for that. I mean, India is the coming giant. China's growth is slowing down. India is accelerating. India is becoming or has become the fourth largest economy. It's extremely important. And, you know, taking this measure of basically beating up on India in order to impose sanctions, while understandable from one perspective, I think the Trump administration really underestimates the damage. They think they can just fix it. They think they can just say, just kidding, tariffs are going away. We never really meant it. But I think they underestimate how sensitive India rightly is to being treated this way. So I'm very concerned about that going forward. I think this is one area where the Trump administration may be doing lasting damage. He thinks he can fix it quickly. I hope so. I don't know.
All right, let's leave it there, Professor Rogoff. I'm glad we agreed on at least two things. One is that tariffs will come back to hurt the American economy, in addition to the debt that it has taken, along with the fact that the political impact of these tariffs will be felt in the India-US relationship as well. Thanks much for joining me this week on India Sense. Now, Trump has named long-time political aide Sergio Gaurie as the next ambassador to India, also tapping him as the special envoy for South and Central Asia. Though Gaurie lacks foreign policy experience, he's known as a trusted Trump loyalist. His nomination comes amidst rising tensions with New Delhi, primarily related to tariffs, which are now 50%, the highest in the entire neighborhood. You compare that to 19% for Pakistan, a little over that for Bangladesh as well. Now, trade talks have now stalled because of that reason. In addition to that, there are several other factors also that Gaurie will have to look in when he looks to actually lift the India-US relationship. Student visas being one, they've actually dropped by nearly 50%. Deportations are also rising. You take one single case around a truck driver and you make that as a generalized sweeping decision for all Indians wanting to work in the US. So those are sticking points that the next ambassador to India from America will have to address. And India's ongoing oil imports from Russia will continue to remain a point of friction. Now, Gaurie is tasked with repairing and reshaping ties with one of America's key partners in the region. The appointment does, however, send out one very important message, and that needs to be highlighted, viewers, which is that the Biden administration left this post vacant for nearly 2 years. And Trump seems to be wanting to move quickly to ensure that whatever may be the hangover of his tariffs that he has imposed, 50%, does not lead to an impact on the overall political relationship with India, which is why in 6 months into his term, he has identified who will be the next ambassador to India from the US. Now, viewers, Donald Trump thinks immediate. There is no concept of long-term strategic in his dictionary, in his view. So in his immediate quest for balanced trade budgets, Trump has ensured that India reevaluates its diplomatic hedges far more quickly than what it was planning to earlier do. Those are independent decisions, but India has been looking to do that and has now, of course, been hastened because of these factors from the Trump administration. Already, India and China are now looking to collectively take on Trump's economic bullying. Both New Delhi and Beijing are making efforts to improve their ties, which had started last year, but that reset has now got a fresh fillip with aligned economic goals. Normalcy is now also on the anvil. But the finer aspects of the India-China relationship is more complicated. One is we have aligned interests when it comes to economic bullying, but there are national security concerns. There are some issues post the Galwan clash that need to be highlighted more. And this report tells you why India will have to still keep its guard high against China, even though we may come together when it comes to Trump's economic bullying. Take a look.
A rare breakthrough in an otherwise frosty relationship. India and China are engaging again at the highest level, addressing one of the key friction points in ties, the boundary question. Taking the first of many big steps to reset ties, both countries agreed to address the settlement of the boundary question and send an expert group to explore an early solution to boundary delimitation. While the word breakthrough is on everyone's lips, New Delhi and Beijing's definitions of normalcy differ sharply. For New Delhi, normal ties hinge on peace at the line of actual control. The 2020 clashes in Galwan remain a bleeding scar. For Beijing, economic engagement and political dialogue can run parallel, even without full disengagement at the border. New Delhi's message is clear. Border disengagement is a must for trade and economic ties to restart. Meanwhile, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi insisted that India and China should view each other as partners rather than adversaries or threats. For India, the message is clear. Talks must translate into action on the ground. Without progress at the LAC, diplomatic breakthroughs may remain only on paper. Meanwhile, both countries agreed to resume direct flight connectivity at the earliest and reopen border trade while China lifted curbs on critical minerals. Beijing went a step further, with the Chinese envoy in India openly criticizing Washington's bullying, firmly opposing Trump's tariff turmoil while backing India. This shift in tone comes a week before Prime Minister Modi heads to Tianjin for the crucial SCO summit, a grouping that is particularly significant at a time when Washington grows increasingly isolationist. Smiles, handshakes, and the signal that Asia's two largest powers are well on the path of the reset. Yet, New Delhi must remain cautious, for it has been on this path before. It remains to be seen how India and China will walk the fine line between rivalry and cooperation.
All right, viewers, on that note, we slip into a very short break. We come back on the other side of India Sense and tell you why this will be India's year of reckoning and what we should be doing to grab that opportunity. Stay with us. We come back with that story and more on the other side. Now viewers, 2025 is going to go down in history as India's year of reckoning. We've been slapped with an unjustified, irrational, unreasonable 50% tariffs by the Trump administration. And we stood our ground, not bowing down to any pressure. And this is the time when we unleash the second set of reforms that will propel India to a 10 trillion, a 15 trillion, a $20 trillion economy. India has already started with a massive rationalization of GST rates. This will bring down costs of most goods, in turn bring down cost of living, and start a chain reaction of consumption and higher economic activity. But this is one aspect of what we need to do to unleash that second or third generation of industrial reforms. A 360-degree economic reform package is what India needs to bring about. It must make all efforts to attract top dollar, top investment, top investments around the world. And for that, we need to simplify our regulatory process. Multiple permits, many agencies, all that stifle MSMEs, they stifle startups, and both hold the key to India climbing up the manufacturing ladder. We need to modernize rules for our sunshine sectors. There's a reason why they're called sunshine sectors. They have massive growth opportunities. Whether it's tax, whether it's employment, whether it's incorporation, all those rules need to have a certain amount of flexibility for our sunshine sectors. They are the catalyst for growth. Whether it's renewable energy, whether it's defense industrialization and manufacturing at home, all of that needs to now account for a certain amount of flexibility. Already enough has been said as far as labor reforms are concerned. But where is our flexibility when it comes to our gig economy? We need to build that in. That's one of the and some of the areas that we can focus on to climb up that ladder. As I said, this is a year of reckoning, and we need to make good on the opportunity that lies ahead. Now viewers, week after week we talk about India's ascent, we talk about India's rise. But we also need to now talk about the disturbing wave of racist attacks that Indians are now facing. These are hate crimes. Particularly in Ireland, there's been this brutal, unprovoked series of attacks that are coming to light. Why is it? Indians as a class are people in many geographies around the world. They ensure that they participate the most in terms of economy, they are tax-paying, best educated. So why is it that they are being attacked? Like a 6-year-old girl assaulted outside her home, professionals like Dr. Santosh Yadav, Lakhvir Singh, targeted by teenage gangs. Embassy in Ireland has ensured that there is a strong advisory that goes out, but there's a 90,000 strong Indian community punching above its weight. Why are these anti-immigrant sentiments coming to light? And why is it that protests are taking place when it comes to targeting this community? The reason for that is, as I said, this is a community that punches above its weight, and it will continue to do so. The onus now lies on agencies to ensure that they are not targeted. The excitement around the new iPhone 17 set to debut next month is palpable, but that's not why we are excited here on India Sense, viewers. It's no ordinary iPhone, but the made in India iPhone. It seems Washington cannot push away India so easily. This report tells you why India is the apple of Tim Cook's eye.
I had a little problem with Tim Cook yesterday. I said to him, Tim, you're my friend. I've treated you very good. You're coming in with $500 billion, but now I hear you're building all over India. I don't want you building in India. You can build in India if you want to take care of India, because India is the highest, one of the highest tariff nations in the world.
India may no longer be the apple of Trump's eye, but that hasn't stopped Tim Cook. Despite his Oval Office charm offensive, Golden gives a $600 billion pledge to boost US jobs. Apple is quietly rewriting its playbook in India. For the first time ever, Apple is set to produce all 4 models of the much-awaited iPhone 17 in India ahead of their debut next month. Not just that, Apple is even expanding iPhone production in India at 5 factories as it looks to reduce its reliance on China for US-bound models. Despite looming tariffs, the numbers tell the real story. India's iPhone manufacturing has seen rapid growth, with Apple assembling phones worth $22 billion in the past year in India, making the country responsible for 20% of the global iPhone output. iPhone shipments from India to the US also grew 76% in May this year. The iPhone 17 may just be the first true make-in-India iPhone, turning India into Apple's manufacturing backbone and giving New Delhi a new edge in Washington's power game. An edge that could even force President Trump to rethink his sweeping 50% tariffs on India over Russian oil. Tariffs that so far have spared Apple's prized product. This boom is fueling India's ascent. Jobs, foreign investment, GDP growth, all powered by the iPhone. Apple is no longer just making iPhones in India. It's making India indispensable to its future and leaving China in the dust. India is now the top smartphone exporter to the US, overtaking China. Amid the tariff tussles and trade tension, one thing is clear. India's Make in India dream is ringing louder than ever, and Apple has just given it a $1 billion boost.
With that, it's a wrap. Thanks so much for watching.